So, you want to be an it girl? Hi guys, and welcome back to Confessions of a Wannabe It Girl. Today we are joined by Holly, and you have done some major things, including being an AD for Coachella, an assistant director for the Fenty Fashion Show, Volume 3 on Amazon Prime. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here.
I'm super excited. So, very exciting. I love that you are a woman in this space. I'm very excited to teach everybody what you do. So, can we break it down? What do you say you do?
So, I, in every way that I can, I'm in the control room for live TV and music. So that means sometimes it's associate directing, meaning I'm the one next to the director queuing everything up for them, or I'm in the director's seat calling the cameras, or I'm in the tech director seat, which is on the other side pushing the physical buttons.
Wow.
So, and sometimes depending on the budget, those get all combined into one, or you actually get 3 full roles. But either way, those 3 career paths were like, I knew my way to stay in the control room.
Right.
So yeah, but in the most like metaphorical sense, associate directing wise, I like to describe it like, while the director has the wheel of the car, I have the map.
Oh, so that is a good way to describe it.
So I'm the one that's like, yeah, look out, there's something coming up. It's like obstruction on the right, in 3, 2, 1. Like,
love that.
Like half a mile away, that kind of stuff. So
okay, so you said associate director, AD,
associate director, which is the AD, yeah, and
Okay.
then technical director, and then director.
What is the differences between all of them?
Oh,
You can break down just like each, and then what the duties encompass.
it's funny because they always sit right next to each other in the control room. It's always the director, and usually on the left side is the AD or the tech director, and on the right side is their other team. And a lot of big directors have they're like a triple group. They travel everywhere with each other.
They're squatted up.
So it's a very exactly. And it's very much like the director. If the director is not the tech director and they're just on their own, then they don't have to push any buttons or read out any cues. Their main job is to make sure that they're looking at the screen and making sure that the live stream the show is ultimately looking how they want it to look.
Show, same thing these days.
And then the associate director has just papers and papers and pages of notes that are every cue that the show has, and it's their job to just kind of basically read them back to time. And then the technical director is the one listening for those cues. So when the AD says, there's a soloist upstage, then the director says, take a close up. The tech director knows it means a camera of someone upstage.
And go to that.
Yeah. So
that's like kind of like so in dumb terms, let's dumb it down.
No, yeah.
So director is head honcho and kind of like the artiste and goes, we want this, we want this, we want this. The AD is in charge of making sure that shit happens.
Yes,
exactly. Okay. Not to put myself up here, I do have some knowledge of this. My mom was a lighting designer, and I have in high school, I ran Lightboard for a musical. So that's the only reason I'm able to somehow string this together. And then the technical director executes the action.
That's probably closest to what you did as the lighting director.
Right, I didn't program any of it.
It's just bam, bam, bam.
Yes. And so, was it ever called a stage manager? But because these are live.
No, there's definitely stage managers.
Okay, what's that one?
So their job, if you think about those 3, tech director, AD, and director, they're always away in a truck or in a booth or in a control room. So there has to be somebody that's kind of the eyes and ears and the head honcho on the floor, and that's the stage manager. They really operate in a sense of like the first assistant director does on a film set.
Yes.
They're the one, they're usually very heavily involved in the schedule. They have the boots on the ground. They're the ones orchestrating the traffic, saying, all right, let's bring in, Taraji and Harry, Nicole, go to dance, that kind of stuff. Right. They're the ones that are on the floor going 3, 2, 1 when I'm in there. You're saying 3, 2, 1. Yeah.
Wow. So, and this is always for live events.
Yes.
Live, but do you only, everything's broadcasted now in some format, but have you done it ever for something that's not broadcasted? Is there any differences really is what I'm trying to find out.
Yeah, the difference is anything that broadcast is really, I love broadcast because it is so definitively, oh, you're not ready? I'm so sorry. 3, 2, 1, we're live. Like there's no redo. But then, then you go to the Fenty shows and volume 2 and 3 were not live. We shot those kind of over the period of a few days. And that was actually, shot scripting the whole thing.
Like a film.
And shooting it like a film. But, it's a very
like
fun, complicated thing because you have to cut it kind of like a broadcast, but you physically can't move around the way you could in a live. So, I always tend to just go for anything that is as close to live as possible, just because I feel like
that's your vibe.
You just get in and out, better. It's just a little, but I'll always love like anything like you always like seasons of shows like Clash of the Cover Bands or College Bowl or anything like that. Those are all the same kind of thing where they're shot, over like a 2-week period, but they shoot those. It's called live to tape, meaning it's not live, but we're going to play like it is. So we cut the show like it's live. And the idea is that you just give it to post in the most like
almost
pretty
edited.
Done version as possible.
Right.
And that's how a lot of the kind of like TV shows.
Right. Like, So You Think You Can Dance was, or well, like.
That one's different because it is live.
Ooh. So that was really like broadcasted.
Yeah, well, because they have like the voting stuff. Same with American Idol.
Right. I think they used to, because I went to a taping once with like a dance friend. The first dance is the only thing that's taped alive then. Because that was shot in the morning, and then we were released for a very long lunch, and we had to come back and sit there for the live show in the same exact seats.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense.
But it was only that number, and we had to get there so early, and then it wasn't till like 7 at night we had to come back.
I bet you they use all that time in between to muscle memory their actual dance.
That's so fun. Yeah.
And because I was always wondering during shows, like, my goodness, they have to really just memorize two dances every week. That's crazy. And that makes a lot of sense. That is how it's sectioned out.
Actually, I think it's coming back. But we digress. So can you kind of like explain for us, you can use a job you've done or a hypothetical job you've done as an example. Like, what happens? Like, what is the process? Like, you get hired for the gig and then like, what the fuck?
So it depends on the gig, but typically if it's a music thing, no matter what the music show is, it will be, I get hired on a show and then as many weeks if I can, sometimes it's just a day, sometimes it's that day, but I will always try to get the music ahead of time.
What they've picked and what they're going to do.
And I will and what I do is I make breakdowns of everything, which is essentially writing down the beat of every single beat of every bar of the song. Like, so it ends up being like, maybe 8 pages per song.
Right.
And
then 8 pages per song.
But you know what? It's really easy when you get it down because it's just like at the end of the day, almost everything is 4/4. So the beats, it just lays out on your paper like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the idea is so when the director when you're rehearsing says like, I want the fire cue to be when she's jumping in the splits. You're like, I know the part. It's right there.
This all lines up.
Yeah. And then like, he doesn't have to try to describe exactly where it is. I'm like, no, I know. It's this third count of this beat.
Wow,
I got you.
So do you go to rehearsal? So you break it down?
Yes. So that's prep.
Okay.
So
prep.
You do the prep. After prep, then the idea is you arrive on set and all you're doing is transcribing. You're taking your breakdown and you're writing down every cue that needs to be done essentially for the show. So let's say like for Global Citizen last year in New York, that was interesting because we had a lot of artists like Lizzo, J-Lo, and Coldplay who had their sets very, very locked in. We knew exactly what they were doing. We knew the order. We knew how long the songs were. And so that made that very easy for me prep-wise to just have everything ready. But then there were some circumstances like Shawn Mendes and where they were doing stuff, and I was literally getting past lyrics while we were live in the control room. So sometimes it comes down to that. And so if you get any rehearsal
responsibility,
if you get rehearsal time, that's amazing, and that's really what you're doing. All of rehearsal is helping yourself and trying to be proactive and writing out all of like the cues that will need to happen.
Yes,
because, and that's
Speaking and who decides what the cue like? The director?
The director.
Okay.
Or sometimes it's the director, or because as the AD, since you're kind of the pipeline to all the other departments, a lot of times, sometimes the lighting director or the sound mixer will say, hey, Holly, can you give me like a 5 count before that, just so I know? Or like,
And
hey, can you let me know?
Who gets to make those decisions? Like the director does, or does like, I mean, I don't know. Is it a collaboration between all these people? They're like, it would be really cool if there was fire here.
Yeah. Well, so yes, that's that. The bigger decisions, like if you were going to bring pyro or fireworks or anything like that in, that's all decided by the director and then the producing team. That's the real like
creative
power of
people.
Yeah. That's very similar to a film set where it's the producers that are like the money backers, and it's usually their project.
We want it to look like this.
Yep.
Right. And that's true with artists, like singers too, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah, cool.
Hopefully, that usually will be one of those things where I will get you usually have to plan those far enough ahead in advance before you get to rehearsal.
Yes.
So I'll usually know going in, like, by the way, there's going to be fire. So get ready for fire cues.
Yes.
Or just so you kind of like know what to section out. But it's all about, as the AD, you're just trying to make it as easy for everyone to understand the show as possible. So those big creative decisions are like, all right, let's say like for the Fenty show, volume 2, we were in a warehouse and we're doing this big long tracking shot where we go to Cara Delevingne and she takes us down the hallway and we need to raise a curtain right as she's turning.
Yes.
And the stage manager, and as we were rehearsing we all knew that the curtain had to lift, but the stage manager just asked me, hey, can you give me a cue for this? Just so I know, just kind of for overall stuff. So it's really like department heads kind of talking to each other the whole time during rehearsals saying like, hey, can we do that cue one more time? Or how do we, and it's always a really fun challenge for me because you really want to make it as few words as possible for the whole team.
Right.
So, they'll say like, you need to cue up a fire cue or something. And it's always like 3 to pyro, 2 to pyro, 4 to like kind of stuff.
Right.
So like
keep it short.
I saw like this one article in the DGA magazine that was interviewing an associate director, and I think she does news, and she was talking about how she challenges herself to never having a cue more than 3 words, which I have not gotten to, but it's really fun because when your whole job is about figuring out how to make your wording as precise and concise as possible, whenever people come up to you and are giving long-winded anything, your patience is like,
you're like,
my man, I need a yes or a no, and then we're moving on.
Like, let's go. Because you're trained to solidify it down for everybody else.
Yeah. Do I need to react to what this is happening, or is this an update? What's happening?
Deal with it. Yeah, I need you to take care of yourself in your own space. That's so interesting. Also, not to mention, like, I kind of said it earlier, and I really want to talk about this too, is like when people randomly hand you pages and you've never seen it before, but like the responsibility you have and like everyone on some level, not to freak you out because you already are very good at your job, but like everyone is depending on you.
I have imposter syndrome too. So yeah. So like, I feel you.
Like it is like, it's like on your back.
Oh, it's really interesting when I'm working with this one director who refuses to put anything digitally and it's all written out on pencil. And I like Annie Live, I had the entire all the show calls were just one copy in like a binder that I had that's
old school,
that I just like had to protect for dear life. And I would hold it in the morning like, this is the musical.
Right. This is it.
This is musical. Like, if I just spill this coffee right now, the musical's gone. Like,
I would keep that like in an air safe bag.
I know. It was almost like, you protect it like a baby. I save like all my binders now because I feel like they all have so many.
They've been there for
fun
you through
notes.
a lot.
Yeah, and it's nice to be able to look back to and just say like, wow, that was a lot of pages.
Right. No, that was a lot of
work. And also just going back to know like, yeah, that's right. I did.
Yes. I crushed that. Yeah. So what is it like though when you get pages that you've never seen before for somebody who, like you said, Shawn Mendes, like that's major. Like it's not like, Susie's ballet school.
Well, at the end of that's where the prep really saves you.
Right.
Because the idea is, even if I don't get music for an artist, I'll, like this happened with Doja Cat too, where she actually didn't end up coming to the gig, but I didn't get her set list till the day of because they just didn't know what she was going to play. Oh, I wish she hadn't canceled. Oh my God, that was my dream. I wanted to work with her so bad.
It's still gonna happen.
It will manifest.
Yeah.
Because you kind of like make sure that you just listen to their big songs before you go in. And at the end of the day, the idea, like what's really nice about, someone like Shawn Mendes is almost every single pop song on earth is either written in 4/4 or 3/6, which means like, one, there's nothing holding me back. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like so
right.
You always can. I can pretty much now find the downbeat of any song pretty quickly, just once you know what you're looking for, and that's what saves me, because they hand you stuff and you're like, all right, I have no idea how many counts are in this verse or this chorus, but it's usually 8, like 8 bars this, 8 bars this, and then we go to the bridge. So let's roll. And at the end of the day, the ultimate thing is you'd rather, if I don't truly know 100% what the cue is, I don't call it. Because like there's nothing worse than like you say like, and the song's over now, and they're still singing, and you're like, God, oh God, I'm like an idiot,
right? But it happens.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm like entranced. I'm so fascinated by this stuff and like just hearing all about it, because like true confession, I recently went to Coachella, which was also a gig you worked for a great group, and I was like, I know some of this stuff, and it really hit me how concerts are live called, and I was like, I'd never thought about it. It's something that completely slides under people's radar. Like there are people making this happen. Like it's not just like a CD and we stick it in and like everything works at the right time for fucking Harry Styles. It's mind-blowing to people.
And it's really interesting too that because it's actually so unknown, sometimes there really isn't that much thought put into who's directing. Well, I'm not even kidding you. I won't say which artist, but that first weekend, they just had, there was a few, they did, people that had never worked on the show were just like, hey, you want to direct it? Yeah, sure. Like, I'll do it for the night kind of thing. It was not, which is different than 88 Rising.
Right.
In terms of, we were rehearsing at Universal, like, for like a week and a half before, and then a full week again for weekend 2. But it's interesting because that's also like a whole different way to direct. I think that a lot of, because what they're called is, because that giant screen is called the IMAG, IMAG. And so the directors of those are called the IMAG directors. And there's a lot of directors that are still figuring out that it's different when you can't call an IMAG screen the same way you'd call like a music video or a TV show, because
very different.
You are creating an experience for the person in the back, like as an IMAG director.
Yes. I can't see shit. Yeah.
And just like, and also me who hates crowds, and I will be as far back as possible.
I probably think I have both of those. Yeah. So I feel that.
Yeah. So, because I remember, and I wish, I've been to too many concerts where I wish I'm watching the IMAG and I wish they I know that they put no prep into it, because I'm like, that this is a famous song, like specifically One Direction. It's like, why are we on a shot of Louis? This is Zayn's close-up.
Right.
What are we doing?
We need to know our knowledge.
Excuse me. Like,
be prepped. We need our knowledge.
We know this is his verse. Like, we know it's his
aware.
Verse.
I actually know nothing about One Direction, but I get the sentiment.
It's okay, but it's basically like, just
but like, know your shit.
Know your shit. And
know
it's one of those things too
for.
where it's so funny too, because sometimes I'll even I'm even just like, whatever, I'll just admit this. Like, I didn't even plan to go into directing. I just got annoyed by how many people were just like,
you fix. So my favorite quote is, if you're going to complain about something, you better be willing to fix it yourself. I made that quote myself, so I quoted myself, ew. But like that.
But also, yes.
But also, like, if you're going to complain, seriously, do it yourself and like see how hard it is and like why the problem is, which was clearly. So I applaud that. I agree.
Thanks. Yeah, and it's one of those things too where I also have just been realizing over the last year, like, I think forever I was looking for the right like environment where I felt safe in a sense, like, there's that dream work environment out there. Like, that was just a bad show. That was just a weird person.
Right.
And then it wasn't until recently I've kind of just come to terms with like, okay, I'm going to stop looking and I'm just going to create the environment.
Yes.
That's it. And there's like this, like all the environments that I'm in from now on, like I will control
we're
how we are all handling each other.
Right,
yes.
the vibe, which is, I mean, is so important. And I think that is, I mean, I think it really applies to anybody who wants to work in the entertainment industry. Know that you are carrying the weight of, no matter how big or small the position or role you may be in, you are carrying the general overall feeling of that, you know, event, that thing.
Oh yeah, and
it's huge.
And it's amazing to me how many people in those positions do not understand how valuable and how quickly you can lose morale.
Yes,
like, and morale is
everything.
Imperative. You need it because like shit will go wrong.
Yes,
you will be behind.
Right,
people will be late. Things will break, and you're gonna need your people to want to rally with you and not go whatever.
Right.
Like, I hope it crashes and burns. You know, you want your team behind you.
Yes.
It only happens if you don't. One of my favorite feedbacks that I get a lot of times is after a show, they'll say, you know, you're like one of like the nicest ADs I've worked with, which is very strange to me because I'm like, who are these mean
people?
Who yelled at you? Like,
Who made you cry?
Where did they?
Yes. Who upset you?
There's just totally. We don't need to bully, which is, I think there was a lot of culture of feeling like if you had the megaphone, then you kind of fell a little bit sometimes into that.
Ooh, let's get into that. So let's talk about, you know, the scope of people who work in this industry, and also kind of like, I mean, there's no dancing around this. Like, it's a very male-dominant industry. Anything production, anything behind the scenes, super male-dominant. And, you know, I think there's also a huge, now this is not a gender thing, I don't think, but there's a huge power play. Everyone loves to power play in these situations. Talk us through like how you navigate this, how you deal with this, and the scope of the space, and, you know, you being a woman in it.
So the first time I was really kind of like punched in the face metaphorically with this
I love how you talk.
Power trip is I was tech directing on this one show like years ago, and I didn't, and the company asked for this really incredible machine that they wanted, you know, they wanted the image to be as like perfectly clean as possible. And I was like, I got the machine. I researched it. I'm like, I'm bringing a guy in. He's going to train me for the day, and then we're going to be golden. This dude spent the whole day telling my boss that there's no way I could learn it in a day, and that they should hire him as the operator. And I went up to him and I was like, my man, I went to my boss afterwards. I was like, it's Photoshop. It's 6 buttons. I learned it in 20 minutes. And that was the day I realized that these people that are gatekeeping these like hardwares are gatekeeping like calculators. Like, this, it is not complicated, considering also anybody millennial and down can take on, like, you hand anyone a phone. It's like, okay, cool. I know where to find everything.
Here's your pictures,
I can survive and operate with this. Yeah. Like there is all of the software. It just looks big and scary, but it's really just it's the easiest. It's no more complicated than a laptop.
Right.
If not less. So I learned that day, and having that experience where he was trying to like semi-take my job for me, and I realized how like easy his position was, you know, and it was the whole thing like, I've been doing this 10 years. I'm like, oh my God, that sounds so boring. But
I love how you have the reality check of like, ooh, like
yikes. Like,
yikes.
Never, just
never
6 buttons out for 10 years? Okay. I kind of made it a fire was lit under me.
Right.
To start. Like, it was kind of like when you learn that the Easter Bunny is not real, and then it makes, well, you know, that's scratch that. Yeah. It's like when like something that you thought was a fact is not real, then it kind of just like starts this chain reaction.
Yes.
And that's what happened. I was like, so if that was so easy, how hard is that job? And it kind of just went from there, where I just really kept learning as many hardwares and softwares in that control room as I could, and then was able to teach, you know, friends and bring in people that wanted to learn as well. And it's also about, you got to be around the right, like, environmentally, that's a whole other thing. For sure. Because
this is a high stress situation.
Well, like, the stress of the show almost like I can handle. We as women right now are still at the mercy of the people around us in our environment, which sucks because like I know that I'm not gonna, like, day one on a show that no one has worked with me before and no one knows me, I know there's gonna be a 2 to 3 day grace period where I will be underestimated, I will be ignored. It will be until show day when I get like, oh, hey, kiddo, great job. I'm like, I know.
Kiddo.
Oh, yeah, that.
Yeah.
It's a whole other thing. I had to politely tell a guy, like, yeah, no. And then just like, oh, please don't call. Because he was like, oh, sweetheart, I'll do this. I'm like, oh.
Sweetheart. Yeah.
It's bad. It's still bad.
This is my fucking job. And you have a huge resume.
Yeah, so it's very, and then, oh, man. And then a few times you get the, a few times, you know, you walk in the room and you get the like, oh, like we've been trying to get more like women in here and more diversity. We're so happy you're here. And you're like, I'm not here because of my gender. Like,
right.
Think what you want. Like I worked my way here.
Right.
Or rather the way that it goes back to, I think, what we were talking about earlier, where I just like the environment part of it, you kind of have to develop a thick skin. And also it's very much walking in, faking it till you make it kind of vibe. I'm not even kidding.
You hit the pillar of the podcast. We talk about faking and making it all the time. It's a huge, just pull your shit together, look like you know what you're doing at all times.
It is also, when you start understanding like body language, I will, if I'm like feeling particularly insecure and particularly kind of cut out of a situation in a room where there's a lot of men, I will man spread. I will just like change my position completely to just like, and it's crazy how it's such a like Jedi mind trick that they're like, oh, what is your opinion? I want to hear it.
I'll pay attention to her now. She's spreading and taking up the space.
Oh yeah, like it's like I'll just power pose and it's literally about taking up space. Like it took physically taking up space because I think that's what I think. For forever, with me, even the mindset was like, well, I'll just squeeze right in here. You won't even notice me. I'm just going to do my job and I'm just going to sit here in the corner and not going to be able to.
That relates to a lot of women in any job. Yeah. But this is a different.
And now being in the room enough, I'm like, hey.
Right.
Look at me.
I got it.
Yes. It's been a very, I'm very grateful that I'm on that kind of feeling more powerful part of that journey and not feeling as, but also like going back to that grace period, that's kind of where like understanding that I kind of am able to brush stuff off for the first couple days.
Sure.
Because unfortunately it's still, it's going to be, unless you are known, which it is very hard, like, you know, that takes a long time.
Yes.
Then it's, you know, it's very, it's a different world to navigate,
because everyone comes into these jobs, and I'm sure some people, like, you know, you were saying before we got on the mic, some people come as, you know, a team or a squad into certain roles.
Yeah.
But you have to remember that when you accept jobs like these, it's not like your office culture. Everyone is somewhat new, if not very new, to this group, this environment, and the dynamic. And so it's like, not only are you dealing with having to come in as a woman in a job that often men have filled and often men think they are better at, and then on top of it, you're dealing with the whole dynamic of just a new group of people being together to begin with. That's true of any friendships, groups of squads, anything. Like, so it's like, it's very relatable to anyone. So,
well, and it's all, I mean, I think, I've also become recently obsessed with, mirroring behaviors.
Ooh, go on.
And knowing, because here's the trick that I learned, I think from watching someone else talk about it, is that like, if someone likes you, they will mirror your behavior, which is as little as crossing arms, hands by your side. Like if you're both leaning on the table, there's like, it's a subconscious thing where you almost just mimic them because you want them to know that you like them.
Yes.
And I've noticed it in work situations where if I am wondering how to get a creative point across, I will ask the people who are mirroring me more than the people that aren't, because I already know that they like me.
God, you're so smart.
It's this other person taught me this, and it was like amazing. And that helps me in social situations so much now, because now I feel like I'm just instead of just feeling lost and not understanding and just kind of getting lost in my own thoughts and my own fears about facial expressions with people, like understanding mirroring behavior has helped me navigate so much better.
It's so interesting.
And you're able to, and it's also like, you then know if you want a person to like you, if you just kind of subconsciously mirror them,
right?
Like they won't even know what's happening and they're like, wow, I'm more comfortable around this person. That's crazy. Like, so there's,
The work environment is so, how did you know this was something that was like right for you to go into? I mean, you clearly have a strong understanding of music because I think you have to.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of counting. And you sing, too.
Yeah, but that's, like, I played piano when I was a kid, so that was kind of, I think, how I learned to read music. But really, like, the way that I describe counting music is, it really just comes down to, like, you just have to have rhythm. Okay. You don't really even need to have, like, a music.
Sure.
Like, deep knowledge, because it's just, the count is going to be however you dance to it. Like, usually if I, like, don't know how I'm going to count a song, I'll just listen to it and then, like, start dancing into it. And you kind of see, like, if it's like, okay, it's like this. So the count's going to be this tempo. Or if it's like if it's salsa, it's different.
But you like me. You have a love for music.
Yes.
And is that how you realized that this was, like, a good job for you or something? How did you come to find it?
Oh, my goodness. I think I have always... It was my first internet show out here. It was like a variety Hollywood show called Hollywood Today Live.
You started on big shows, I feel like.
That was another like crazy, crazy, wonderful thing that happened. My first job as an editor was that job. I was able to follow it into a control room and then end up directing a few shows for Fox. But it was all like, lower budget stuff. But it was like for your first job, it was you couldn't ask. It was like getting a master's degree. It was like getting to go to school again.
But you positioned yourself well and got it.
Yeah, well, it was one of those things too, where as soon as I stepped in the booth and they were like, "You want to try directing music?" I'm like, "Uh huh." And then you're like, "Oh,
fake it till you make it."
Done. Great. Done. This is what I want to do. And it wasn't until I saw a viral video of Carrie Havel doing Grease live.
I think I've seen these. Yeah.
That when I saw that, I was like, I don't even know.
On TikTok, right?
I think it was on YouTube.
Oh, I saw it.
YouTube days.
I've seen people do these on TikTok. It's really popular.
It's amazing. Oh yeah.
It's so cool.
Oh, I saw her do it for Grease Live, and I remember thinking like, okay, I want to do that and I want to work with those people.
Yes.
And I don't even know what those numbers mean, but I want to find out. And like, there's so much to learn in this job where like, it's not just, pop songs are one way, but I'm doing like orchestral stuff, and then you do salsa, and then you go over to, do ballet, and music just is, I'm going on a train of thought just because talking about music, but every job I always took, I always, whenever they ask, what do you want to do? I just say like, music is my home ground. Like, however I can be involved in music, that's it. Which in that sense meant like music in TV, and in terms of live to tape. So I think just like I try to treat every job like an interview for my next one.
Yes.
And
that's such good advice.
And well, that's what networking really is. Like if you just keep like, because the idea of networking is frustrating to me too. Like I don't, it's stressful. But if you have a job, you are literally like, that's your network. There you go. Just
those people.
And if they like you and they want to work with you, like you just made it through that interview,
right?
And you got a second job. That's great.
But that's how you stay. That's how you stay working. That's how you expand your experience. That's how you learn. I think expand your experience and learn all the same fucking thing, whatever. It's all the same. But that is really good advice. Like if you want another job in this space, do a good job. Be friendly and like talk to I know when people are assholes in like a creative set environment, I'm like, you're never going to talk to any of these people again, right? And you're not going to continue to work.
Well, here's the funny, like, I wish I tried to tell myself this, and I feel like I did a pretty good job, but there's sometimes you just like have a bad day on set, but like it is a small industry.
It's small.
Oh my God. Like the person that was your boss on a previous show, you're their boss on the next show, and now like I hope you had a good working relationship with them because they now need to listen to you,
right?
Kind of thing. So it's it's so political too in terms of just being as nice and cordial as possible. There's a few names I think we all have them where it's like, oh no, I will happily blacklist you.
Yeah, like I won't do that.
No, I will. No. I will shout your unpraise.
Sure.
Forever.
Right. Sure.
But for the most, but in general, yeah, you're really trying to always have like this, which is a struggle for me, is always having this like kind of upbeat, happy, attitude, saying like, trying to bring people in, which was actually really great with the masks because I have such a resting stress face. My face is I'm just always, if I'm just not sitting there thinking too many times, are you okay? Mm-hmm. I'm fine. But having the masks on, no one was able to know if I was like making faces or like mouth was agape because of something someone said. Like that really saved me. And now I'm trying to now that we're back in the social situation again, we're all working together, I'm having to retrain my face, which is the social,
no fun.
No, the social aspect of, I think that's another reason why I just love the control room, because at the end of the day, my job is sitting in front of a TV and reading my notes. And it doesn't matter how many people are on the comm that can listen to me, can be 5, can be 500. I don't see them. They just listen. It's very much like a podcast in a sense where it's like, you know what?
You're in your zone. You're
exactly.
in your space. And we've been talking about that a lot about the podcast is when you're the most yourself, most successful, most, not even successful all the time, but just into it is when you're in your zone. And it's this is your zone. That is the time when you're actually doing the job, calling the thing. And I love that. Yeah,
that's my favorite. For too long, actually, I really was very insecure about, because I'm also just physically when I'm directing or when we're just ADing or anything with music, it's really, I can't do it without dance, a little moving, always.
So that's how I found you. I want to tell people that. Okay. So I saw I think I actually saw it on TikTok or maybe Instagram. I'm not sure. I was scrolling through and I saw you calling the show for Coachella, and I was so entranced by I was wow, because I had that epiphany of someone's doing this, calling this, and then also it was you're so into it, and I was you also look really cool when you're doing it, and I was fuck, that is so interesting, so under talked about. Talk about pulling back the curtain on entertainment industry, which is a huge thing we talk about here, is just how much work major productions, major things are. And nobody Susie in Oklahoma has no fucking clue.
No, and I think that's one of the most incredible things about social media is the fact that we are able to show the fact that there are so many jobs that have just been held hostage for forever, and A, they're super fun, and B, they're really possible to get to and
really cool.
And work to get yourself to. Oh my God, it's personally, I had such a huge insecurity about how much I just stim and move when I dance.
Don't.
And then for Annie Live, that was one I had to completely shed that, because I was you know what? If I don't move, the counts will not be right. And that's the only thing that matters. The counts have to be right. So that was I kind of shed that layer after Annie Live, and now I'm just now I'm just full moves, because at the end of the day, it's exactly that, where that's why I'm in this job, because I love being in that zone, and I love listening to, I love being in that music moment. I feel like Mickey Mouse in Fantasia when you're when he's on top of the thing, and one cue, one hand, suddenly this happens. It's it's
That's
magic.
a good visual for what it is. Yeah.
Even just oh my God, I just got to cue fireworks in Chattanooga, Tennessee for Kane Brown.
That's sick though.
But oh my God, that's, you have the drone flying and you're here we go. It's exhilarating, and oh, yeah.
I love that. So if there was one thing you wanted to debunk about your job or the entertainment industry as a whole, what would you say?
I would say that my job is very necessary.
Yes.
It's crazy how many, I've actually had to convince some people, why do we need an AD? I'm oh my God.
Why do we need
Do you want your show to be you can tell a lot of people their colors will show in terms of like if they don't have a lot of television experience or film experience. That's one of I've recently had to come across this a few times where I've had to convince an employer why my job was necessary and important. After the director's like, you need to hire this person. They're like, okay, cool. Can you tell me like the duties that you're doing? I'm like, I'm calling your show.
Yeah.
But yeah, sure, I'll break it down.
And how do you break it down?
And it's like, it's like I'm working with all your heads of department to make sure that every single cue from all the is not only timed correctly, but also orchestrated correctly. And I'll be the one in everyone's ear on the day, like calling it on time. And it's
not to mention that it's kind of a safety thing too. If there's big things like
absolutely
pyro,
it's one of those things. I think too. I think my job is necessary too because I love directors that want to get those like perfect, like that close up, right when she looks and winks. Like, I want to work with directors that want to be that precise.
Oh, the moments, the it girl moments.
Oh yeah, and and I found a few directors that do that, and like his name, Alex Rudinsky is my favorite director, and I've worked with him a few times, and he is incredibly precise. Every single shot is planned going in. But that also, and then sometimes then you work with the other side where you have a lot of like these kind of like leather jacket, cool guy directors that come in and they'll say like, no, I never plan my shots because you never know what's going to happen live. And like, I understand the point they're making, but what ends up happening is their shows are just them chasing after a ball instead of having the camera ready by the time, you know, like, it's like, you're always like, and they found her,
and you know? Got it.
Yeah. But so, and also at the end of the day, no one's going to like, that's why the director's there in those special cued moments. If something goes wrong to go, okay, I'll take it from here, you know, and make it better. But it's been really nice trying to like even educate my own industry about like, but I think prep would be nice, guys. So,
yeah, like I think it would really help.
I think, wouldn't you rather maybe be proactive and not reactive?
And that is why there needs to be more women in it, because it's such a, even though I'm shooting myself in the foot because Eric makes me previs for our short films that we sometimes work on, and sometimes I'm resistant. So Eric, you're excluded from this conversation. He's like, well, thank you. But that's why, because women want to come do the pre-stuff. That's like where women, I think, really thrive. It's like low-key catastrophizing beforehand. Like, we want to know what's happening. Why don't we want to rehearse? Because then the finished product will be that much better. And I often find, I don't know if I'm going to get fucking canceled for this, saying left and right, like, that men sometimes are more willing to just fucking wing it.
Quite literally, I'm at a job. I was getting a job where I'm going to be working with a lot of musicians, and I was asking about the prep they do beforehand, and I said like, okay, so do you get a set list? And they go, no, you just kind of show up and do it. Oh, okay. Do I get to talk to the team before? Is there a rehearsal day? Can I show up there? Nah, you just show up and do it. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? At least I'll look at some videos on YouTube of them performing, and they're like, literally, we just show up and do it. I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense, y'all.
Yeah, but I'm gonna prep. Best. Yeah, I want the best outcome possible.
Like, I'm doing the Dixie Chicks at the Greek, like in a few months, and you better believe I will know when those violin solos are, right? Because we will get a close up of it. Because
and it's gonna be that much better because of it.
Yeah, because I think I always just go back to my own experience, like watching an IMAG, and you're just frustrated if you know, because you're there because you love them,
right?
And you love the songs, and you know every moment of it. And if the person is just following the ball and being reactive, you're not giving them. You're not giving them like the experience A, they paid for,
right?
And B, that you have the opportunity to do. You just didn't prep. But
Holly, I could talk to you about this all fucking day. You are so cool. You are so smart. You are so plugged in. I love to hear even that last sentiment that you're just so about the experience for everyone. Please tell us where everybody can find you, and if you can say, or if you have something coming out or whatever, tell us like what's next for you.
Yeah. So I am Hulls in Hollywood, HOLLZ in Hollywood on TikTok and Instagram. I'm not really active on my Twitter.
Fuck Twitter. No. I can't spell.
It's more just like for observation of slowly falling into chaos. And oh gosh, in terms of music, if any of you are in LA and are seeing any shows at the Greek Theater, I'm directing those shows throughout, like, for the rest of the year, which will be really fun. And I think, yes, stay tuned for the other stuff.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again for coming on the podcast. This was really, really cool.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such an honor.
Oh, please. The honor was all mine.
I hope I hope my rambling didn't ramble on too much.
We love a ramble.
Great.
We love a
ramble. Great.
Guys, thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.